Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. I hope you all are doing well. It is Friday, the weekend is nearly upon us. The beginning of the 2023-24 Premier League season is right around the corner. Everton's first game of the season being against Fulham tomorrow afternoon at Goodison Park. The season actually starts tonight. Burnley playing Manchester City this evening to kick off the Premier League season, with Everton's first game, of course, being tomorrow. We are going to have our game preview to the Fulham game up a little bit later on the channel, so don't forget to look out for that one. But before we do that, I thought we'd go through some of the latest Everton news and rumours, because it seems like every single day we're getting quite a significant update regarding either Youssef Chermiti or Wilfried Gnonto or Hugo Ekitike. It just seems like there's constant updates at the moment, and you know what, why not come and sit down and do a little video discussing them and giving my thoughts and opinions on these situations. So obviously the last time we spoke about transfer rumours and news, we were discussing both Hugo Ekitike and Wilfried Gnonto. We spoke about the fact that there were reports in France that PSG had accepted a bid from Everton for the young forward Hugo Ekitike, and it was just a matter of the player making his decision. We spoke about the fact that other clubs were interested in him, and that Everton were pushing hard to try and make a deal happen. And we also spoke about the fact that Wilfried Gnonto had been left out of Leeds United's squad that faced Shrewsbury, I believe, in the Carabao Cup earlier on this week, and it was then revealed by Daniel Farke that he had not picked up an injury, therefore leading to speculation that he had been left out because of him wanting to move away from the football club. But we have had some updates, on both of those situations over the last 24 hours or so. Sky Sports had reported yesterday that Wilfried Gnonto is unhappy at being unable to complete a deal to move to Everton so far this summer, and has made himself unavailable for Leeds. Di Marzio then reported Leeds are currently not open to selling Wilfried Gnonto. If Gnonto was to move, it could be a loan deal in the last few days of the transfer window. Everton and Aston Villa are both interested. We then heard from Fabrizio Romano late last night. Wilfried Gnonto has wanted to move to Everton since July, and his position hasn't changed. His priority is to join Everton. Personal terms have been agreed on a 5-year deal. So that sort of squashes any rumours that Wilfried Gnonto doesn't want to move to Everton. There was a lot of discussion over the last sort of few weeks or so about Wilfried Gnonto, and a lot of it was surrounding, does he actually want to move to Everton? And you know, we spoke yesterday about how I said a couple of weeks ago that I always felt like this deal or this situation wouldn't progress any further without the player himself sort of stamping his foot down and almost saying, well, I want to move, and making that public, because they, you know, Leeds are in a position where they don't necessarily need to sell. Leeds are in a position where they don't want to sell. So therefore, if the player isn't kicking up a fuss, and if the player is seemingly happy to stay at Leeds and seemingly not particularly interested in a move, then this deal was never going to go anywhere. You know, like I said, I always felt like it was going to take Wilfried Gnonto himself almost doing something like making himself unavailable, or putting in a formal transfer request, or coming out in the media and saying he wants to move before any of this sort of progressed. And that's why I always felt like the Gnonto deal was a little bit of a waste of time up until that point, in which the player makes it quite clearly known that he wants to move, because Leeds United were always going to stay very firm unless they received a stupidly high bid, in which case they weren't going to receive from Everton. Well, the player has now made that quite evident and made that quite clear that he wants to move. Fabrizio Romano, who is, of course, somebody who is seen as, arguably the most reliable source in football when it comes to transfer news, has clearly stated there that Wilfried Gnonto wants to move to Everton. He's only ever wanted to move to Everton. His position hasn't changed, and personal terms have been agreed on a 5-year deal. So, again, will we see this one move now? I think we'll see a lot of movement on this in the next couple of weeks or so. I think now Leeds United are almost in a tricky position. They've got two options. One of them is to allow him to leave the football club and to, ultimately accept whatever offer Everton put on the table. Obviously they're not going to accept a stupidly low offer, but my point is they aren't really in a position now to say, well, we want 30-40 million pounds and the player's happy here, so if we don't get it, he's going to stay. They still can make those demands, but they now know that the player is unhappy and the player wants the move, so maybe they'll be forced into a position where they accept a little bit less than what they originally wanted to accept just to get him out the door to sort of to move on from it. Or they can stamp their foot and say, no, you're not going anywhere. Brighton did it with Casido in January. You're not going anywhere. You're our player. You're contracted to us, and unless we get a certain sum, whether it be 30 odd million quid, then you're not leaving. And then obviously they'll have to deal with the whatever Wilfried Gnonto decides to do post that. Whether he decides to not make himself available, I doubt he'd do that. He'd probably just get his head down and play under the auspices that he gets a move in January. But again, it won't be a very favourable position, especially when the Leeds fans will know that he wanted to leave the football club. So I definitely think we will see movement over the next couple of weeks or so with the Gnonto deal. I do think there's other Premier League clubs interested. Burnley was said to have been interested earlier on in the week. Aston Villa said to have been interested as well. However, it seems like the player himself wants to move to Everton and only wants to move to Everton. Fabrizio Romano saying his position hasn't changed. He's always wanted Everton. Hopefully we can get that deal done, because I do think Gnonto would be a good addition to the squad. Listen, again, he's very, very young, he's very inexperienced, and he's very rare, and ultimately he would need working on. And again, he is at this point somebody with a very high ceiling and with a lot of potential and with a lot of promise, but he isn't the finished article as of yet. So I do think there's been a little bit of a misconception over the last couple of weeks with Wilfried Gnonto that he is the finished article, and if he comes in, he'd be unbelievable and he'd be great, straight away, and he'd make an instant impact. That might happen because he's played in the Premier League and he had an okay sort of breakthrough season last season, but we still need to remember he is a young kid. He has still got a lot to learn. He has still got a lot of room to improve. So, we will have to be patient with him if he is to sign for the football club. But this is certainly a very, very, very interesting development in this story, because now, like I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, I sat here on the video and said we are wasting our time even pursuing this deal until the player himself puts his foot down and says, I want to move. And now the player himself has put his foot down, and we'll see where it goes from here. Leeds might still stay firm and say, no, he's not going anywhere. We need him in the Championship, and, he's contracted to us. Or they might be in a position where they think, you know what, we don't really want the negative sort of vibe in the dressing room, if you like. So we'll take that bid, we'll get rid of him, and we'll move on and go and bring somebody else in. Who knows? We'll wait and see. I still think there's quite a distance for this deal to be done. Everton are in negotiations with Leeds for the transfer of Wilfried Gnonto. That is according to multiple sources. Fabrizio Romano, I think, reported that yesterday as well. So it's not like Leeds have fully turned their back, shut the door and said, no, we're not bothered. We're not entertaining it. They are in active negotiations with Everton for that move. So, again, I dare say the ball is probably slightly more in Everton's court now. Like I said, I still think there's work to be done for this deal to be completed, but the negotiations are taking place, and it's now become quite clear that the player wants to move. So we'll see where these go over the next coming days, but it's certainly an exciting development from an Everton point of view. On to Hugo Ekitike now. According to Patrick Berger, who is a chief reporter for Sport 1, he has reported that Everton are in advanced talks to sign PSG striker Hugo Ekitike. Everton are really pushing for the French striker. Dortmund are also interested in Ekitike, but he doesn't want to be a backup. We also heard from Sports Zone, who were the Twitter page that originally broke the Ekitike news. They have stated last night that PSG have accepted Everton's bid for Hugo Ekitike and wait his decision. Ekitike and his entourage are evaluating Everton's proposal, and Rudy Galletti has reported earlier today that Everton are pushing hard for Ekitike. Talks with PSG are progressing at a good pace. Understand Everton are speeding things up to anticipate the competition of Eintracht Frankfurt and other European teams. Hugo hasn't made a decision on his future yet. Now this has been one that has caused quite a lot of confusion over social media over the last few days or so, because there's been certain sources reporting that there has been a bid tabled by Everton and there is interest by Everton, and there's been other sources to suggest that Everton aren't currently pursuing a move for the PSG forward. Interestingly enough, Alan Myers, who was one of the reporters who had stated that Everton had a bid for Hugo Ekitike tabled, he tweeted yesterday, "Here's the thing with Ekitike. Has there been an offer? 100% yes. Do I think it happens? Probably not. Why? Because he will have many options, which is why some may be playing it down, meaning other sources, playing down that there hasn't been as much interest from the club because they don't actually think he will end up signing for the football club, but they have put a bid in. I hope I'm wrong. He's a talent." And then Alan Myers replied to somebody saying that 100% has been in contact. With respect, the manager wouldn't speak about anything but Chermiti, which is the right thing to do. That is in reference to Sean Dyche's pre-game press conference where he was asked about Hugo Ekitike. And again, a little bit of confusion. There was a few tweets that were sort of put on social media after the press conference stating that Alan Myers said, that Sean Dyche had said, "No contact to my knowledge," or something along those lines. "To my knowledge, there's been no contact." That isn't strictly what Sean Dyche had said. Sean Dyche had been asked about Hugo Ekitike, and he said, "To my knowledge, I don't know much about him." And then he was asked about whether there'd been a contact, and he specifically said, "No, I'm not." He didn't say, "No, I'm not talking about contact," but he said, I think it was Vinny O'Connor said, "Has there been contact? Are you talking about the fact there's not been contact?" And he said, "No." And then he said, "I've got no knowledge of the player," talking about he doesn't know much about the player. So again, it was all very confused. Some sources saying there's been no contact, other sources saying there's been a bid. As Alan says, maybe the sources that are saying there's been no contact are because they actually don't think it's going to happen, and therefore they don't want to create a false sort of dawn because there has actually been a bid, but it's unlikely to happen because he'll have a number of other clubs sort of wanting his signature this summer. Who knows? For me, if you ask my gut feeling, even this morning, reading, that PSG have accepted Everton's bid and that, Ekitike is evaluating Everton's proposal, even reading that, I just have a gut feeling that this isn't going to happen. Can I realistically see Everton spending £15 million, £20 million on Youssef Chermiti, who looks set to come through the door? Sean Dyche spoke about him yesterday and said that it's very, very close to being done, and it's practically in its last stages. And then 30 million on Wilfried Gnonto, as well as 30 million pounds on Hugo Ekitike. I just can't see it. I think it will be either Gnonto or Ekitike. Would I like them both? Absolutely. And if Everton could get both deals done, I think it would be a fantastic bit of business. Is that likely to happen? I'm not quite sure. And if you were to ask me now what my gut feeling is, which one I think Everton will sign this summer, I think it's more likely to be Wilfried Gnonto, if I'm being honest with you. Purely for, as Alan Myers states, I just think there'll be a number of different teams interested in Hugo Ekitike. He's spoken there about Dortmund being interested in him, and Frankfurt being interested in him. There's other reports coming out of France that Lens are interested in him and he'd rather go to there. I just think there'll be a lot of sides interested in his signature, and there will probably be a number of sides that are in European competitions that are interested in his signature, whether it be the Europa League or the Conference League. Obviously, Dortmund are a huge club, and if it was competition between Dortmund and Everton, then there's only one decision being made there. But as that report states, the player himself doesn't want to be a backup; he wants to be a starter. Well, will he be a starter at Everton? Probably not if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is fit. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin isn't fit, which is very likely, then he may well be a starter. But like I said, I just have a gut feeling that this one isn't going to happen. Do I think Everton have bid? Yes. Do I think there's been contact? Yes. Do I think PSG have accepted Everton's offer? Probably yes. But I think we're going to get to a point with this one, or I don't think because I've got reason to believe. I just have a gut feeling that we're going to get to a point with this one where PSG accept a number of bids for the player, and ultimately the player's got 4 or 5 clubs to decide, and he ultimately ends up picking, I don't know whether it be Eintracht Frankfurt, whether it be Lens, whether it be somebody else. He picks someone that is in Europe or has got a higher chance of finishing in a European position this season, whatever. again, maybe it might be the pessimist in me as an Evertonian, but I think with Gnonto pushing for the move and with Gnonto actively wanting to join Everton, and with negotiations taking place with Leeds, with Chermiti coming through the door in the next 24 hours, I just can't see I just can't see all three deals being completed. And I think Ekitike's the one where, whilst Everton clearly are interested, I think he's more likely to have other options, and I think he's probably more likely to take those other options. I could be wrong. He might look and go, no, do you know what? I want to go and play for Sean Dyche. I want to go and play for the Toffees. I don't want to go and play for anyone else. And hopefully I am wrong, because he's certainly a good talent and certainly somebody that is very, very highly rated. But again, I just get the gut feeling with this one that maybe this is a bid that is being used to sort of to quicken up the Gnonto stuff. Maybe Everton have almost said to Gnonto's agents or Gnonto's entourage, you know what, don't even worry about it. We're going to go and sign this kid instead. We'll move on from you. And that has been the sort of the thing that has made Gnonto go, no, do you know what, I really want this move, so I'm going to put my foot down and I'm going to publicly state that I want this move. Yeah, who knows? We'll wait and see. But as it stands, Everton apparently have had a bid accepted, and apparently now it's down to the player himself to decide whether or not he wants the move. As I said, I'm sure we will hear a lot more on that over the next 24 hours or so. And then finally, Fabrizio Romano has stated that Everton have finally completed the Youssef Chermiti deal. Medical tests ongoing as contracts are ready with Sporting. Chermiti will sign as new Everton player in the afternoon. That was yesterday, and as I said, Sean Dyche was discussing Youssef Chermiti yesterday and said that he was asked about Ekitike. I think he was asked about Gnonto as well, and he said, I won't talk about them, but one player I will talk about is Youssef, because he is very close to being through the door. So hopefully we get that announcement over the next few hours or so. Hopefully we can get that one announced before 12 o'clock so that he's available to be in the squad tomorrow. But yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. When it does get announced, we obviously will be live with the announcement video discussing the player and discussing his first interview. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification for that one. And of course, we'll also be back with the game preview to our opening game of the season against Fulham tomorrow. So big thanks for watching. Please do leave a like if you have enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new as well. Massive thank you for watching. Up the Toffees, and we'll see you later.